It is Wednesday, December 12th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very, very fun get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. I don't know, it was really cool, man. We were doing some stuff from the dogfight position. And that was something we don't typically cover. You know, I mean, we were first doing transitions from like the knee shield to the dogfight, and that was really cool. But then we were doing some like sweeps from that position, and also, you know, securing a better position to get to a sweep. And so I don't know, it went really, really great. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of stuff. The kind of stuff that I caught, though, was a little bit different. Like the first thing that I caught on to was a sweep, and it was funny because the instructor misunderstood me when I was trying to describe what I had a question about. Because what it was is the position is you go from a what do you call it, a knee shield, right? And then you take the leg that you got a knee shield on your opponent, and you straighten it out, all right? And you shoot your arm under their arm and get an underhook, right? And you pull yourself into a dogfight position with their leg between your legs, and you kind of scooch it way out from their body, and that allows you a good way in. Anyway, so I was looking at it, and it seemed to me that if I had my opponent, I had my left hand behind my opponent's back and like was grabbing the belt, right? And if I were to reach through and grab his ankle, that I would be able to sweep him, you know, by rolling backwards and just clear over. And the instructor, when I had mentioned it, he thought I was talking about that one. I was actually talking about from the position of your opponent, where, you know, your opponent's got you in a whizzer, right? On the with the left arm under his arm tucked, right? So I was thinking if the only place I could really go from there would be to take my hand and reach through and grab his leg, and then take my shoulder or my head and put it to the ground, and you know, flip him, roll him over me, and that actually worked. But that was the one that I was trying to describe to my instructors, like, because you're in this position where, you know, it's like you're, I don't know, in a dance or something where you got your one guy's under and the other guy's over, and you're both on your hands and knees with one hand down. And I'm like, you know, it could go either way. It doesn't matter that you have the one leg in between, right? And even with control of the leg, after you've passed it over on the one side, if you swing out your opponent's leg, like you got his leg in between your legs, right, or hers, no discrimination here, and you swing it out to your right hand side to try and control your opponent. That would be good. That's good, I think, to like help bring your opponent down, because you like shuffle to the side a little bit, right? And that'll allow you to get better access to the sweep that we were talking about from the side of your opponent, right? Where you've failed to get the full pull through, you know, where you've shot your leg straight trying to get that underhook, and in getting the underhook you get wizard, right? And so the position is kind of weird, and like I said, from what I could tell, there's opportunity on both sides for a sweep, and we were doing some drilling from there, and it was funny because it didn't really occur to me till the end, but I think there was another way to go about it, and I didn't like fully articulate it in my mind, like how I would go, because like I said, you got your opponent's arm, tucked under your arm, or you got an overhook with a whizzer, and you're like grabbing your own lapel to hold it. I was thinking about it, and like I said, it seemed to me that there's potential on both sides there to transition into a really good sweep. But I was trying to think of another way to go about it, where if you're able to disengage your leg, even with your opponent having you in a whizzer, maybe grabbing the other lapel and pulling towards you or something. I don't know. Instead of posting out on that one hand. But the culmination, the thing that really made my jiu-jitsu lesson especially fun today was one of the brown belts thought one of my ideas was cool, and that it's a win, man. It's a win. I'll take it. What it was is that same position, right, where you're in the dog fight, and you've got your opponent's, you got a what do you call it, where your opponent has you in a whizzer and has your foot popped up, but can't get down to your ankle to fold it, because that was one of the sweeps, is that if you get the whizzer, or wait a minute, your opponent gets the whizzer on you? I think the opponent gets the whizzer on you. I'm trying to think of the body position now that I'm not doing it right now. So let's see here. The foot position was the one thing that I was having difficulty with, is after you get the arm through, I kept getting my foot stuck in between their foot, because like you do this passover thing where you're passing their foot from one foot to another. And that on that one, I kept getting my foot stuck in between my foot and his foot. And so I changed the position that I was making that adjustment on, and it seemed to work out, where if I'd get to a full seated position, even with him having a whizzer on me, and change it over from there, where I would hook my right foot over their ankle, or his ankle, and then pull it open, and get my foot out of there, and like put my knee in between his foot. Actually, no, that was the one where I'm trying to grab his ankle, and for some reason this guy, I got my hand on the belt, right, and I'm trying to reach down to get to his ankle, and he's seated up too tall for me to do that, right? So what I did was I re-grabbed his belt, and I pulled myself really tight to him, and to where my chest was right up against the scapula. And I retransitioned the foot. Like I had it acquired with my left foot, I retransitioned it to my right foot. Okay? And got my left foot untangled from his right foot. And then I stepped over the back. I stepped over his ankle on the back, and then just pushed into his hip and dropped him. So it's just... But anyway, I commented on it to the instructor, like at the end of the drill. He's like, does anybody have any questions? And I'm like, well, yeah, I got a question. I go, I don't know if it was legit, but what I did was this, and I walked him through it verbally, and he's like, well, could you show it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I got the guy, and I did it pretty much as the exact same way that I did it to him before. And one of the brown belts, I hear him over my right shoulder. He goes, "Wow, that's a neat move." So I mean terribly exciting. I got a little bit of an improvisational point there, and just it was cool to get that kind of acknowledgement. Anywho, as far as where we're going to go in the rest of the episode today, I'm not entirely sure, but we're definitely going to break into some music. And I was thinking about what song I wanted to play, and I haven't figured it out yet. But I've got plenty of good stuff right here in front of me. And so, no, it's not quite time for that one. The trading week has been kind of kind of weak so far. I don't know. It might get a little more exciting a little bit later on towards the weekend, but I don't make those kind of predictions. You know that. And as far as our first dance, though, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of this that goes on, but I don't know if that was... There was a song I was thinking about specifically that... I remembered what it was. Because despite all of the stuff going on in crypto, this is just how I feel about it. And so here it is. Suicidal Tendencies. You Can't Bring Me Down. First Dance. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Exodus with Open Season. Man, I love that fucking album. If you've never had the opportunity to check it out, Fabulous Disaster by Exodus. Front to back, solid motherfucking album. I mean, it's like, it's one of those fucking classics. And you know what's funny is, they're one of those bands that quality wise, they don't go down, but like there's just some of their stuff after a while is just like, I'm not entirely sure that I really like this. And but recently they've been coming out with some better music. But directly after Fabulous Disaster, they came out with Imminent Impact is Imminent. And that's another one that is just like, it's like they picked up right where they left off with Fabulous Disaster and just ran full forward with it. And it's an excellent album. Anywho, I've been looking for the tab that has the fucking article that I wanted to cover in it. And that's not it. Although it is topical. You know, I like you have a shit ton of tabs open and, you know, navigating through and figuring out which ones you kept open for what reason is, yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. Checking out the price at the moment, and it looks like Bitcoin is up a teeny tiny. Very interesting. Oh, that's one we're definitely going to cover tonight. Ooh, let's see here. How he pictures me. Every time I see this Radio Crypto Buzz. Yeah, that's it, buddy. That's exactly what it looks like. This is it. Been saying for a very, very long time on this show that I felt that Lightning Network was the wrong way to go with regard to Bitcoin, because it seemed to me to be the same thing as using Visa or any other debit card with your bank. And consider the custodial controls that your bank has right now. Now imagine that the hub that's facilitating your Bitcoin transactions, or the service that is servicing your Bitcoin transactions or other cryptocurrency transactions, has as much custodial control over how you utilize your funds, who you spend your funds with, when you can spend your funds, under what conditions you can spend your funds. Somebody else determining these things for you in crypto. I mean, really think about that for a little while. And maybe they don't apply that kind of pressure like initially, right? You know, maybe they they put out the welcome mat. And, yeah, sure, man. We won't report you to the feds for dealing with darknet markets. We just go for it, man. Don't even worry about it. Just use our service, please. You know, and then they get popular, right? And before you know it, somebody buys an AK-47 and does some shit, and one of their executives is called before Congress, and they're talking about some sort of regulations, and next thing you know, there's all kinds of AML, KYC, and so on and so forth, right? This is not something I'm just like making up out of whole cloth, right? I'm looking at the way this whole sphere has evolved, and I mean, there's plenty of proof that I've been here for it, man. I mean, you go look for Frank Dashwood, you're gonna find me all over the fucking place, you know. And so the thing is that I've had an opportunity to observe this shit as far as like the mentations of legislators and developers and miners and so on and so forth. And it seemed to me that a long time ago, probably in 2013 when FinCEN started talking about Bitcoin, about that time is when the news started to tighten on some aspects. Now, keep this in mind. During the same time all this shit has been happening, we've seen several iterations of hardware booms, hardware busts. You know, we've seen all that shit in between, right? And the one thing that I keep thinking about is ghash.io, and they were one of those pools that initially was causing some concern for people because they were about 51% of the network. And, you know, there was all that 51% attack fear, right? So what happened was the people that were putting their hash towards ghash.io started looking around for other mining ops to go to. And then all of a sudden there was no 51% attack issue because ghash.io just withered into nothing. So this has been going on the substrata. You know, this is, you know, the strata that they're intending to peg all this fucking Lightning Network this and fucking side chain that and so on and so forth, right? They're going to plan ahead so far that they're going to be able to count on, you know, Blockstream being the primary development group, that, you know, that their iteration of Bitcoin is the primary one that's always going to be used, and, you know, we can just build on top of it like it's cement. And the truth is far from that. The truth is far closer to, you know, you're building directly on the interface between the sand and the ocean on a beach. And you're just counting on the idea that you're always going to have the same amount of sand underneath you. Anybody who lives within like a quarter mile of a beach knows that would be folly. But so anyway, it's not going to stop people from trying. And you know, hey, these are the kinds of things I think that would work best, like behind the scenes. Like, you know, say you're Sears, right? Rather than doing a whole shit ton of transactions, you just start your own side chain and do all your Lightning Network transactions amongst your stores and limit your transactions to and from the blockchain that way. And you can actually do that yourself without any additional, like, support people involved. And I think that's one of those aspects it's really, you know, played fast and loose with in this industry, is that you got all these people jumping up with their hands and saying, yeah, we can do it for you, man. You don't have to worry about shit. And next thing you know, they get a contract for millions and millions of dollars. They get the money up front. They don't do jack shit. And like 3 to 4 months later, their clients are calling them up for some reason or another, whether it be because the software hasn't even been produced yet, or because they've noticed all kinds of frivolous expenditures on their records, you know, shit like that, and it goes away, and it costs the whole crypto space the credibility to that customer, to that potential customer. You know, and then it starts to look like, you know, the only thing we got going for us there is persistence, right? And the only reason we really persist is because people participate in this. So as long as people are participating, we will persist, right? It's not just a point at it and throw some money at it kind of thing. Anyway, so I got this article here on Bitcoin.com or BitcoinMagazine.com. And remember, we've prefaced this by saying that I think Lightning Network is basically just some custodial shit. If you're not paying the miner fees, somebody else is, and that somebody can tell you how you can spend your Bitcoin. And so here it is. This new Lightning wallet allows you to receive tips without running a node. A new program set up Lightning Network micropayments. Tippin.me has recently entered beta testing. The developer for this project described some of its details on a Reddit thread to the r/Bitcoin subreddit. The dev says that it, quote, allows you to receive tips, micropayments, over the Lightning Network anytime, anywhere, without needing an LN node, by means of a, quote, simple web custodial wallet. Upon sign-up, Tippin.me gives you a personal Tippin link to be shared that contains a fresh QR invoice with an undefined amount to be paid. If anyone sends you money to that QR invoice, this amount will appear in your Tippin.me dashboard. The overall plan is for people to, quote, share it and receive tips across webs, blogs, Patreons, forums, etc. using Lightning Network. It should be noted that since payments must be routed through the program, the wallet is custodial. If you're going to use it, you're temporarily trusting your funds to the developer, i.e. until you can actually afford the transaction fee to withdraw it. Yeah, whatever. So some might find it less secure than a trustless non-custodial solution, i.e. an on-chain transaction. The project is still in beta, and as a result it hasn't been adopted by or extended to blogs, forums, or any third-party platforms. However, the developer claimed that such functionality can be implemented later down the line if there is sufficient demand. Shortly after the product's announcement, the lone semi-anonymous developer announced that the website was operational as his, quote, personal contribution to push Lightning Network adoption. The Lightning Network has attracted a large level of interest from the crypto space for its ability to send micropayments over the Bitcoin network and tackle the blockchain's latency and scalability issues. No, that's not what it does. The developer of Tippin.me claimed that he is, quote, doing it for free with no support and on his own servers, with the express purpose of streamlining Lightning's adoption. Additionally, he later announced a free airdrop of 500 Satoshis to the first 500 users to request it, all using the Lightning Network. The project is in beta currently, and that's the third time they've said that, and it is unclear exactly the roadmap will go from here. Nevertheless, it is important to note that this project is not part of a startup company and is instead a totally free program made by a single developer. Yeah, that's not really a really big concern as far as I'm thinking about it. I mean, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you should do your due diligence with it. You know, you shouldn't be throwing around your money just to anybody who says, "Hey, I can do this," right? Because this is a quote-unquote custodial solution. Bank account, Visa card, you know. It's not what's promised with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is promised without a third party. This is a third party. You know, I find it really sad that we are at this point with regard to Bitcoin. I find it really sad that more people aren't taking it seriously. That the miners that are involved in it are just like, yeah, you know, we'll mine those transactions. We like the transaction fees, and you know that's fine and all. But this roadmap leads to systems where they are very, very tiny in number as far as interest controlling things, and that I feel is one of the aspects of Bitcoin that would make it less viable over the long haul. I mean, not to say that there are, you know, a plethora of I mean, there are a plethora of other examples of high centralization in mining and whatnot. But I think that's because the world, for the moment, feels that this is okay to, the conditions are okay to live by at the moment. That you're not seeing, at least in the U.S., there's some indications of it in France right now, with all of the riots that are going on there. Or demonstrations. I don't know what it's called. It looks like riots to me. Anyway, there's some indication that there's the dissatisfaction with taxation regulations and the attempts to reinculturate entire countries via stupid policy. I think it's kind of starting to show that it's unraveling a little bit, and it's going to be at the point where there is disruption like this that we're going to see how people want to use this thing, and I think that's one of the points where even regulators are having the most trouble, is that they're looking at it and they're like, well, dude, how are people using this shit? I mean, it looks like these people over here are buying groceries with it. These people over here are buying drugs with it. And everybody's getting fulfilled on both sides. So it's like, where do we fit in there? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any need for somebody with a gun to point it at somebody else and make shit happen. And it seems like everywhere that does happen, it's some sort of actual crime. Where somebody's like kidnapped or some shit. But that's the depth of the quote unquote crime. Now, of course, there is fraud, and we do have plenty of laws describing exactly what constitutes fraud. So the idea that we need entire new legislative regimes, new frameworks in order to describe fraud is just bullshit. Just complete bullshit. One of the things that enables fraud is official recognition. Yeah, I said it. Official recognition engenders trust, or some level of trust. It's like, oh, okay, the government knows about them, okay. They're not breaking down their doors, so I guess it's legit to operate with them. And they've got the seal of approval, so obviously they're not scammers. That's an assumption I, as a consumer or a user, would make, right? Or should be expected to be able to make if there is an actual, state-issued or federal government-issued certification that says this person, these people, this service is legit, that I should be able to trust that, right? Why does cryptocurrency exist? Because despite all of those regulations and all the seals of approval and all that other bullshit, the last major collapse in the markets still happened, and there was still plenty of fraudulent behavior going on. So, and what did we see for it as far as reciprocation? The people that actually got away with the crimes. What did we see? Maybe some people retired early, got their big ass golden parachute anyway, got their retirement plan and walked. What about everybody that lost their houses and shit? I don't think they're fulfilled in this whole thing. And so just because the fraud is quote unquote official, that it's happening via official means, doesn't make it any less fraud. And when we're not seeing motherfuckers going to jail for pulling fraud via the regulatory constraints, the adjusted rate mortgages and all that shit. These people didn't understand what they were getting into, but it wasn't because they were stupid. It was because nobody bothered to explain it to them. And maybe they were working 12 to 14 hours a fucking day and didn't really have time to review the paperwork with a brain that could actually contemplate exactly what they were trying to get themselves into. Maybe they were desperate. Maybe they were facing, eviction or some shit like that. They should have been like a welfare line or something, but no. They ended up in front of a loan officer who was willing to underwrite a home loan to them. Despite, however, underwater they might have been. But he got a tip off of it, so, he gets his cut, he's happy. He did good. He put somebody in a house that they're only going to be in for about 6 to 12 months. And so, when those kind of things are happening, and from what I understand, this is actually happening to some extent now, that there is some ninja loaning going on out there. It's like a game of musical chairs where, eventually the market is glutted with new homes. The people that bought homes can't offload their homes because the market is fucking awash with new homes, and they're stuck with it, and they can't afford it because they could never afford it. They didn't have the financial infrastructure in their lives previous to signing for the loan to afford it. And we're back at 2009 again. But that's why Bitcoin exists. That's why it operates on a trustless nature. It's why it has a quote-unquote public blockchain. It's also why we trade with positives. People that are willing to loan you their Bitcoin, well, they're just silly. And I think that eventually what we're going to find, and it's not going to take too long. It'll probably take a shorter period of time than it takes for an ICO to bust, is where like Tippin.me, the guy that has the wallet behind all this shit, that's quote-unquote fronting everything, he's probably going to be using the volume of Bitcoin elsewhere. Where he gets loans against it somewhere else. And spends those frivolously on boats and hoes and so on and so forth. And the value of Bitcoin doesn't grow enough to offset the cost. And he's a sunk ship in 12 months. Or he could get fabulously lucky. The price could shoot up. He could sell off at a good price. And then the price will tank. And then it'll go back up. And then he won't be able to buy. And yeah. I predict he'll be wrecked within 12 to 18 months. Or at least he'll be insolvent in Bitcoin. But that's me. But yeah, this if there were any point where I would expect some sort of regulation, it would be in this. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I'd be really surprised if who would be involved? Not the Securities and Exchange Commission. Who would cover that? FinCEN, probably FinCEN. The thing is, this guy would be doing money transmitter work. He would effectively be a money transmitter because this is a custodial service. And I've described on the show multiple times that here in the U.S. and elsewhere, there is already plenty of vocabulary in black and white law. And as a matter of fact, if this guy, hey guy, if you're listening to this show, go to my YouTube channel and look up FinCEN and you will find it. Okay? If you listen to that, you will hear FinCEN's first words on cryptocurrency. And it was at that time that they were talking about this whole money transmitter and custodial bullshit. If you review some of the other legislation that I've done live reads on this show, you will hear specifically descriptions that they have both in federal text and in state texts. As a matter of fact, if you look up BitLicense, the one on BitLicense, listen to that. That's the description of money transmitter and custodian that they're going by. So, I hope you're not based in the U.S., and I hope you're not going to be doing any business with people in the U.S., because I would expect if the place that you are doing business has some sort of extradition treaty with the United States, that if your service got any kind of real traction, that they would be wanting to talk to you. And if you fucked up, they really want to talk to you. Because you'd be operating as like an unregistered money transmitter. Yeah. And by the way, this is by Landon Manning, guest contributor, December 12, 2018, 1:54 p.m. Eastern Time on BitcoinMagazine.com. But yeah, I think this guy's going to end up getting nailed. Yeah. You know, this was the whole formula as I see it is like this, that if Lightning Network providers such as this guy get into this, which I think they already are in it, and they're already doing it, that eventually the block space itself is going to get really, really expensive. And that's one of the reasons for keeping it 1 megabyte, is to make it more expensive. Because eventually it'll be so expensive that you and I and everybody else who's got like maybe $200-300 in Bitcoin is not going to be able to transact that Bitcoin, because the transaction fees on it will be thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. The transaction fee for it itself. Understand what I'm saying here? You know, these people that talk about Bitcoin being the quote-unquote one Bitcoin, these quote-unquote maximalists, that's what they need. They need you to think the only way to use Bitcoin is off-chain, and Bitcoin is the only one, right? And so you start pegging everything on top of Bitcoin, and so the transaction fees, again, thousands, millions, maybe even billions of dollars per transaction. And so you can no longer afford to do transactions directly on the blockchain. You have to go through a third-party provider on a system designed specifically to enable peer-to-peer transactions without a third party. There was a reason why he designed it that way. And it's exactly this, that governments all over the world already had plenty of regulatory frameworks for digital transactions and what constitutes a transmitter and what constitutes a custodian. They already had the shit on the books. Of course, it didn't apply specifically to cryptocurrency because they also had the money. They had the money under their custody to make determination over. They do not have the same over Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that they don't control. So the trick now is to make Bitcoin and the operations of Bitcoin conform to the regulatory framework. And the way to do that is to change the way that Bitcoin operates, or the way that it is primarily used, until the frameworks fit. And in my mind, off-chain options like Lightning Network are specifically that. That there are government entities, and there are banking entities, and there are private entities, and they all have an interest in it. You know, they're either writing the software, they're designing the hardware, you know, they're planning the tax frameworks, the tax layers, and all that other shit. But the problem that I see in this is that all of it is built upon the work of volunteers. People who could just as easily be running non-compliant variants of Bitcoin. Variants that don't allow Lightning Network transactions into the blocks, or don't include them. Something to keep in mind. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it back down into some music. And where'd it go from there, man? Come on. Sometimes I do that, man. I just like leave myself with nowhere to go there. And, you know, the people in my Telegram room or the Discord room for Verge Currency, man, you guys make some suggestions. Tell me what you want to hear. Fucking, I'm going to go with Fear Factory, Digimortal, here on Coin Metal. And that was Rivers of Nile, where owls know my name. Alright. And so, got a few things I want to get into, of course. Been clicking through my tabs that I had available here. And, because, I don't know, I never get to like half the stuff that I open up to get to, you know? And, so yeah, I've got a ton that actually go over the stuff that I did want to cover anyway, so. Let's see, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Damn it, Jim. I keep finding it and then losing it. Here we go. This is one that I want to get into, but it's not the one. This is it. We've been talking about how people having custody over your funds allows them to do certain things with your funds, like without your consent. And so, wow, Bitcoin Cash is down, doobie, down. Thanks a lot, dude. Really. Anyway, here it is. CoinDesk report. Venezuela is forcibly converting pension balances to the petro. This is by Nicholas D. It was December 12, 2018 at 2300 UTC. So yes, penis. Venezuela has reportedly begun converting pensioners' monthly payments into its controversial cryptocurrency, the petro. According to Caracas Chronicles, which we're going to click on, an English language politics and economics blog based in the country, the government has recently begun taking the bolivars, the country's current fiat currency, paid to its elderly residents and automatically swapping them for petros. Normally, a pensioner would receive their monthly sum in bolivars, shift the funds to a bank account, and withdraw the fiat from a local branch, the blog explained. However, the government apparently converted residents' bolivars to petros after sending the funds. Notably, this conversion happened after the government first sent the payments in fiat to residents' web wallets, meaning the Venezuelan government sent pensioners their funds, withdrew them, and replace them with equivalent value of petros. Users who connect a petro wallet to the pension portal would then be able to withdraw their funds, although the blog noted that the petro cannot yet be used. Petro can then be converted back to bolivars. In a follow-up tweet, the Caracas Chronicles noted that the value of petro relative to the bolivar is unstable, rising from 9,000 to more than 15,000 over the course of a few weeks. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro first announced that the petro would be used for the country's pension system in August during a televised event. The petro was first announced last year as part of an effort to, quote, advance monetary sovereignty though the proposal was immediately opposed by the National Assembly and later sanctioned by U.S. government. While the nation claims to have successfully raised hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially as much as $5 billion, selling the token, it is unclear who has invested in it or how much has actually been raised. residents are already required to purchase passports using the cryptocurrency, and the nation's salary system are also expected to begin using the petro. More recently, Maduro said Venezuela will sell its oil for the petro rather than the US dollar to decrease the dollar's importance in the oil market. It's an interesting idea, Maduro, but it's not going to work. Oh, man. So what I expect to happen is that people will sell their petros for bolivars and then turn around with the bolivars and buy Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or Verge or some other currency that has a better track record than the petro or the bolivar. It's just sad. I mean, I like it because Venezuela gives us an opportunity to see how this will play out on a very small scale. Okay, they aren't enough of the global economy to really hurt anybody other than themselves at this point. But what will really matter is whether or not Russia, China, anybody else who is buying Venezuela's oil or is willing to circumvent U.S. sanctions in order to buy Venezuela's oil, that they will adopt the policy of transacting in petros, in which case that would cause the petros in circulation to appreciate because people are actually valuing them in other markets. Now, that in my mind is an effort to recapture monetary value back into the style system that the Federal Reserve has had via the Federal Reserve note. And I don't really see that as being the way out for Venezuela. If they were really smart, they would probably get rid of their central bank. You know, and where I see that happening maybe would be among users of cryptocurrencies and people that do migrate over to cryptocurrencies from them, from bolivars, petros, all that other shit. You know, they get oriented with the idea of a cryptocurrency via the petro. They see how fast the shit moves, and they're like, you know what? This is supposedly based on Bitcoin, right? This is like an ERC20 token on Ethereum, right? Why am I going to participate in this thing when I can use Ethereum and not have to deal with my government's policies with regard to how they treat the cryptocurrency? You know, maybe they quit letting me buy things that I want to buy, or they prevent me from being able to buy the things that I want to buy with petros, right? I mean, this is, I guess, part of a grander scheme to eventually phase out the bolivar entirely and switch over to a cryptocurrency. But the problem is that the people that were running the bolivar will be running this cryptocurrency, and so in that case, it's no more trustworthy than the fiat currency that it's attempting to replace. You know, just because it's a different form of currency doesn't mean that the same entities that abuse the bolivar won't abuse the petro or people's trust in it or inability to use any other currency. In my mind, this will just create a premium for being able to get to Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency, and that's it. You know, and with regard to Lightning and how that will work for these people, I don't think they're going to be transitioning over to Lightning, because the Lightning node hubs will be places where people such as Maduro would be able to apply force. You know, if there were a significant sized hub within Venezuela that was facilitating transactions for people in Bitcoin that they weren't paying any taxes on, Maduro probably wouldn't be all that happy about that and probably shut those motherfuckers down, especially if they're within the borders of Venezuela. You know, I know there's like this sing-song impression that all this stuff is going to be floating out in the ether, and you know it's going to be onion routed, and so nobody's going to be able to tell where anything goes. Bullshit. The people that will be able to tell are the people that are managing the payment channel, and people managing the payment channel will be more or less the hub. And again, there's always the other taint that's associated with your transaction that's received via your cell phone or your other type of wallets. That if you haven't done plenty of obfuscation techniques on, you might face some sort of scrutiny. But in all honesty, I have to say that whatever enforcement actions do take place in this space, I believe they'll be short-lived in effect, if at all, because this is a moving technology. It's not fixed anywhere specifically. And that if there is ever a situation where it is significantly limited within one jurisdiction, I really believe that it'll just go to another jurisdiction, and because this is all digital, if there's a will, there is a way. And I'm not talking about just, fringe cases here and there. I'm talking about when file sharing got to its peak, but in finance. That the alt blooms that we have seen, they are tiny by comparison to what enforcement actions would bring about. Because the brain power and the enthusiasm to participate in this kind of monetary system is not going to go away with regulatory frameworks. And there are children out there that are a lot less inclined to listen to people than we would like them to be. And so those are the people that are going to be defining what's possible. Not governments, not big entities. People that are willing to write software and people that are willing to use it and participate in the networks. But yeah, here it is, and this is just a follow-up to that previous article was attached to it. It happens to be in English, so we're going to read it. And this is on Caracas Chronicles. Government paying old age pensions in petros without people's consent. This is by Carlos Hernandez, authored December 12, 2018. So yes, penis. The elderly routinely receive a message every time one of the government's bonuses arrives, but this month it was different. On December 7th, they got 2 messages, and it seemed like the money for the pension came in and then immediately out, with the only description being, quote, saving in petro. The messages look like this. Motherland Wallet. Credit for an amount of BS.S 1800 for the concept of elderly love pensions. 3rd month Christmas bonus 2018 on 12/7/2018. Motherland Wallet debit for an amount of BS.S 1800 for the concept of savings in petro on 12/07/2018. Yes, the government traded the money the pensioners were desperately waiting for petros without their consent. Naturally, people were pissed and confused. Did that mean they wouldn't be able to use the money? Did they need a petro wallet now? Could they change it back to bolivars? The government has been handing out bonuses to the pensioners through the Carnet de la Patricia system for months now. After a year of hyperinflation, the elderly have become so dependent on these bonuses, pensioners count the days for them to arrive. The process normally goes like this. People receive the message, they go to patriot.org.v, and they transfer the money to the bank, and then they spend all day at the bank trying to withdraw the money. That webpage, patriot.org.v, is one of the most visited sites in Venezuela, only topped by Facebook, Google, YouTube, and Banisco. The page shows a new option now, quote, savings plan. It has a little piggy bank and everything. Now you can exchange your bolivars for petros and supposedly protect them from the hyperinflation the government provokes. It seems like they were so proud of the new function that they automatically converted people's money to petros. So kind of them. By showing off that new savings function, they gave us a look at what they have in mind for the banking system in Venezuela. They sent people the bolivars, and then, from their accounts, they exchanged them for petros. This must be a new form of the dictator's erotic fantasy and wet dream, full control over citizens' finances. They could take money when they feel like it, erase it, transfer it, you name it. Wave the magic wand, baby. All they need to make it happen is force people to ditch their bank accounts and make the Patria webpage their default banking system. Then the sky's the limit. If you're starving, it's really hard to pass on a bonus that might be twice your monthly salary just by signing up in patria.org.v, making people dependent on government bonuses to survive, and making the webpage patria.org.v the only way to access those bonuses is the perfect way to get them to ditch their official banking system. Even elders that hadn't signed up for the system received the text messages, meaning that once they signed up, the money would be waiting for them. The next step for the government would be to add a way to spend the money directly from the webpage without having to withdraw it from a bank account. They're working on that too, and this is where the Petro comes in. Now the web page has an option to integrate the Petro wallet to the Patria wallet. For now, this is just an idea, a project. You can't use the Petro yet, even though they've launched it like 3 times by now, and the option to convert the Petros back to bolivars and send them to a bank account is available, although the option is buried deep in the menu. You might even need a guide to find it. This piece is part of our Omni Chronicles series in partnership with Omnipedia. If you want to help the crypto masses, blah blah blah, account here, share knowledge, blah blah blah. Alright. Donate with card and donate with crypto. At least they provide 2 options for you there. Let's check out some of the comments here. El Guapo has this to say, the easiest thing to do would be to deposit the currency of the nation into their accounts. Unless the government has run out of money and is now content to stiff the oldsters. Yes, sir, I think that is exactly what they're doing. Lorenzo, quote, we seriously have to do something about this hyperinflation. What is the problem? Too many bolivars chasing too few goods. Quote, how about we pay pensioners in petros? We can then slow down the bolivar printing press. Plus, the old timers won't be able to buy anything with their funny money. Perfect, a win-win for the 21st century socialism. Yes, that's exactly what they plan, dude. Let's see. The next one is Duncan VD. Socialism, communism doesn't care about people. Its only purpose is to enslave people in every way and form possible. Eventually, it will kill as it has done so many times. This is a perfect example of it. The regime has no use for the elderly, so the sooner they die, the better they'll lend a helping hand, as described in the article. El Guapo, this. Lorenzo's follow-up, Uncle Sam is Venezuela's largest buyer of oil. There is building pressure to boycott Venezuelan oil exports. Citgo, Valero, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips are the 4 biggest importers. So, here's a harebrained idea how we might be able to help Venezuelans as the regime continues to force the petro onto the most vulnerable members of the population. The Trumpster has a sit-down with the Big Four and tells them to come up with a plan to open offices in Venezuelan major population centers and freely exchange petros for dollars at a rate of 1 petro, the weekly average price of 1 barrel of oil, equals the average price of 1 barrel of oil. The petros they accumulate will then be used by the Big Four to pay PDVSA for imports at the same rate, minus the expense of operating the exchange offices. Trump tells Maduro, hey, look, it's either this or a total boycott. I'm getting a lot of pressure to do something, and this is the least painful. Besides, you want to promote the petro, and this would be an ideal way. The petro would be stable against oil and the dollar as you intended. Every Venezuelan citizen would realize that indeed the petro is worth a barrel of oil and is internationally fungible. It would become a cryptocurrency of choice in Venezuela and maybe throughout Latin America. A win-win for everyone. Now, damn it, let's make this happen, or there will be steps to a boycott. Yeah, that's probably something that they might present, Lorenzo. But the problem is that the petro is intended to be able to circumvent restrictions put on Venezuela by the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar allows them to be boycotted, basically. And so it makes it to where the Big Four are the only people that can deal with them, because they're willing to pay whatever issues, or pay for whatever issues come up with importing or exporting, rather, because they make a significant premium on the oil when they introduce it into the USA markets. Yeah. And so let's see here. The petro... El Guapo says, the petro, if fictitious, it exists in the minds of Chavismo. Nobody is exchanging or buying the petro. What Trump needs to do is nothing. If Maduro wants to help the people of Venezuela, he can do it without Trump doing anything. But Maduro won't. Pensioners suffer because of Maduro and the Chavistas who put the revolution above all else. It isn't the duty of the oil companies to help anyone except their shareholders. Let's see. Ball has always been in Maduro's court. Yeah, kinda. Until he gets displaced. Yeah, I think that in the longer term, Maduro is going to get kicked out. That the cryptocurrencies allow the people to separate themselves from the government entirely, and so it's just a matter of that kind of market, or that kind of framework, amongst the people to develop itself. And we've seen the potential for this just in crypto alone, just not even including what's happened in Venezuela. If you look at like the Silk Road, and you contemplate how simple it made regular retail transactions, transactions on the internet, between two people, one person gives the money, the other person gives the product, everybody happy, And it had its own little reputation system. So, if you didn't deliver, or you delivered shoddy goods, people reported on your shit. And people stopped doing business with you. That's really about as much friction as the market needs in order to operate. It doesn't need to pay taxes to anybody. It doesn't need to appease anybody's political preferences. It just needs to get money from Party A to Party B, and product from Party B to Party A, or service. That's all it needs. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so adamantly against off-chain transactions, because once you separate the transaction capability of Bitcoin away from you, the user, and the miners, once you put an additional layer between you two, you allow for the possibility of an additional layer, a tax layer, whereby every single transaction that you make could be taxed. Now really, think about this long and hard. Do you have market demand for a transaction medium that you can be taxed on every single transaction? That those taxes could be dedicated to whatever the ruling party shall decide, even wars against you and your choices? especially when you have the opportunity to use cryptocurrencies that do not have those restrictions and do not have that tax layer involved. Why would you impose on yourself the additional friction of more hands in your pocket than need to be? I don't know anything else in nature that doesn't have conditions imposed upon it beyond its capability to resist, i.e. where man is involved, but it requires his constant involvement to maintain the status quo. Once he slacks off, nature creeps back in. And the same thing can be said about cryptocurrency, that I think that people's willingness to seek out efficiency and cut down on the hands in their pockets will always deliver them back to cryptocurrencies that they can use with the least amount of friction, the least amount of hassle. And when you're exchanging one cost for something that costs you just as much, it becomes less appealing versus other options that don't have those costs. And that's all there is to it. You know, and I see the kind of power and taxation regime that is being proposed for cryptocurrency, and I can tell just by the look of it that it'll be enough to motivate people to seek to circumvent it. So my feeling is, rather than trying to get in front of it like that, ask people what they'd be willing to pay for, and then either fulfill on their demands or allow somebody else to fulfill on their demands. You know? I mean, because here on the ground, we can see a lot of the costs that get hidden, you know? A lot of the responsibilities that get deferred. We feel those pressures in our everyday lives. And so when we're presented with the option of eliminating that, goddamn Skippy, we're going to do it. At least wherever we can. And so yeah, that's where I see Maduro taking the petro basically into the ground, not really going to improve their situation, and so they are going to revert to cryptocurrencies that do not have the same issues. But yeah, anywho, and this is an article that caught my eye, and I'm just going to do it, because this is, I think, part of the reason why we have some of the issues that we do in cryptocurrencies is because people weren't really paying attention to what they were being sold, and cryptocurrencies in general. If they were, they would understand that in many cases they weren't being defrauded, they just didn't understand what they were doing. If they understood more initially, they would have been smarter about the way they put their money to use, and they would not have experienced the losses that they did. So here it is. This is on Coindesk.com. Crypto 2018 was a tale told by an idiot, but it doesn't have to signify nothing. This is by James Greaves, authored December 13th, 2018. So apparently James is a time traveler, as well as the possessor of a penis. And this is authored at 5 UTC. Here we go. I'm completely out of crypto, and I've been selling my Bitcoin and Ether all year. Does that disgust you? Disappoint you? If you just met me, I'm guessing that would be your first question. When did you buy? Unfortunately, in crypto, the price when you entered appears to have some bearing on how much you know about blockchain. However, I'd start by asking another question. When did it become doctrine to hodl and sacrilege to sell? Where does the peer pressure emanate from? At the end of 2018, you can proclaim from the housetops that you will hodl to the end of time, and you will be applauded, venerated as a sage, even if you're lying. But if you're going to sell, you need to slink quietly out the back door. You've broken the unwritten rules of the cult of blockchain. My hope is that in 2019 we begin to question the norms we've been holding on to and that are holding us back. Consistency is the hallmark of the unimaginative. That's not true at all. It's the hallmark of somebody who wants to keep their funds safe, I think. Continuing. As we enter 2019, my belief is that crypto will need a lesson in strategic execution. Like it or not, there are others like me. Yeah, and you're a fucking idiot too. The initial aim was to use crypto for everything in life, replacing all fiat, a hope that was almost immediately dashed when I entered the market around $3,000 just last year. There's your answer to the above question. Yeah, you were an idiot then too. The promised land appears no closer now than it did in January. Yeah, that's because you're an idiot. As a store of value, I just don't find cryptocurrency useful. That's because you're an idiot. It certainly hasn't stored much value for me this year. Others likely feel the same. Yeah, other idiots. Others too, like me, took the leap as entrepreneurs because you didn't understand what you were doing. A finance MBA with a track record in venture capital and strategic counseling, I left my job as an executive at a SaaS technology company to start a blockchain venture, because you're an idiot. All year I have been hearing 2018 is the year that institutions get involved and real players, or at least traditional players, start to adopt the technology. Yeah, dude, that's because you're an idiot. They've been doing it since 2014. Or 2012 in some cases. Well, some of us came. What did we find? Hype, hyperbole, dogma. A cult that made little sense. Not much value, few actual results. That's because you were asking questions, or you weren't asking questions rather. Anyway, continuing. If I hear one more investor tell me that I need to pay them and they will, quote, coach me and then introduce me to their Chinese friends, I'm going to lose my mind. Yes, it happened all the time this year. That's because you listen to idiots. This year I have been told, quote, number 1, give me $1 million up front so I can help raise you $10 million, no guarantees. Number 2, give me $500,000 up front so I can introduce you to my wealthy friends, no guarantees. Number 3, pay me $100,000 a month to be an advisor for you. You will get me as an advisor. Number 4, pay me $20,000 a month and I will coach you every week. We will get on a conference call with my other ICOs from someone who has never built anything. We are the industry that is trying to change everything. What we need is constant change until we usher this technology into the world and deliver on the hype, which is significant. No, dude, the problem is you're believing hype. We already achieved everything that was necessary to achieve to prove to everybody that this shit works back in 2012. But see, people like you came in and you said, where do I throw the money? Instead of, what's this all about? See, if you were asking what it was all about, you might not have been stuck with people that were selling you hype, because they would understand immediately that you want knowledge and not just someplace to throw your money. Continuing on. The blockchain industry, because you're an idiot, is both culturally inspiring and culturally broken, because you're an idiot. There's so much good. It's open, inclusive, revolutionary, and empowering, but it's also shady, dishonest, mercurial, and often straight out illegal. Yeah, because you're an idiot. ICO, I barely knew ye. That said, it may make use of a decade to unpack all that happened in 2018 completely. No, it won't. To get some distance and perspective, Bitcoin's price will likely end up 5 times lower than when it started, but up 3 or 4 times since January 2017. Dude, hold on a second right there. We started at what was it? 1,000 to 1. It was 1,000 Bitcoin to $1 at one time. So no, I don't think it's going to end up 5 times lower than that. Continuing. The problem is the loudest and most visible parts of the industry have been so much too focused on speculating, on raising coins quickly, flipping, and making a buck. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Even though you're an idiot, you saw that. That's good. That has dragged the rest of the industry into making or asking bad questions. We speculated on, quote, utility tokens that provided no utility and had teams which have never won anything successfully or never done anything successfully before individually, let alone as a team. Yeah, I would agree with that too. But we shouldn't forget that ICOs successfully disrupted VC, surpassing even early-stage VC investment. It's a landmark achievement for such a young industry, and I would agree with that assessment too. But it's also shown the broken nature of VCs, that throwing money at the mouse before they run the race, or run through the maze, just makes them not run through the maze. Continuing on. I believe the ICO model still holds promise, although in a more mature way and perhaps under different guise. We'll have to fight to keep that narrative alive. While the VC model has given us Google, Facebook, Uber, and take a look back at those fucking people. The people that threw VC money at them were primarily government, and those portals have been turned into portals to be like part of the panopticon and shit. Anyway, continuing on. And pretty much everything you've ever heard of, the ICO model has given us Ethereum and CryptoKitties. So the ICO model hasn't yet replaced VC as a viable funding methodology. Promise has been shown, but the boom and bust has given its enemies ammunition to fight against it. Not really. The pick and shovel business. The first wave in any revolution need to be the loudest. The visionaries come in first in settling the West. First we had the mappers and fur traders. They roamed the wild and brought back tall stories and exotic things. Some found gold. That brought the gold rush, the second wave. But prospectors don't build anything of lasting value. I've been to gold rush towns in the Nevada desert. Once the gold is mined, the people leave. That's what ghost towns are. It's the third wave that settled the West. The farmers, the builders. They're the common, boring, quiet folk that raise families and settle in a place forever. Their impact is large, but their voice quiet because they're not out carousing in the saloons and they're not flashing their bags of gold dust. The good news for us third wave settlers is that there is a lot that needs to be built. At my company, Glyph, we are building KYC and accelerated investor tools to help the blockchain community build... you're going to end up getting wrecked. Built with decentralization in mind out of the gate. But we need more companies that help new blockchain ventures hire and scale their management teams, pay stuff in crypto, collaborate as sub-industries, and rapidly form strategic partnerships through research and business development. Yeah, basically get corrupted by Goldman Sachs. Culture is the sum total of how everyone acts and what we are prepared to put up with. The only way you can change it is by collectively making a stand. I too have been guilty of creating this culture by not doing anything to stop it, by accepting it. Yeah, dude, that's because you're an idiot. In 2019, I will call this out every time I see it. I've been doing it privately since June. Maybe it's time to start shaking out the bad actors publicly, kicking out the wolves so the rest of us can build what needs to be built. Yeah, dude, you're basically saying kick out the kids so that the adults can come in and turn it into banking 2.0. Yeah, fuck you. As 2019 starts, perhaps it's time to reflect on what truths we hold self-evident and which need to be eradicated from the vernacular. What are we really rallying around? Where are we going? And more importantly, how are we actually going to get there? If we are focused on the right things, we can cut through the noise. In 2019, I hope there will be, number one, no more white papers. Instead, people will evaluate companies on their ability to deliver results. No, dude. No, that's not going to help you. Number 2, more support companies providing tools and insights upon which others can build. No, we don't want to pay for your fucking services. That costs money. Money we don't have. Fuck you. Number 3, no more blockchain advisors. You're a blockchain advisor. What the fuck are you talking about? No more other blockchain advisors is what you're really saying. Number 4, no announcements between blockchain companies until something has been built. No, that's not how this works. We make announcements, that gets people excited that are interested in it already, and they come to us and we work with them. Number 5, mergers of companies that can't deliver with those that can. No. Basically, this guy is like cheerleading bankers and whatnot taking over your project. Number 6, a large majority of blockchain conferences going out of businesses. Yeah, I could give a fuck if a blockchain conference exists. Number 7, more compliance, custody, and technical tools support more transparency and adoption. Okay, more compliance does not get you more transparency. Custody does not get you transparency, and technical tools don't get you more transparency. And also, none of these things get you more adoption either. 8, security tokens that fulfill their hype while at the same time avoiding all the pitfalls of ICOs. Yeah, that's never going to happen. And number 9, differentiation in the public eye between currencies and speculation. No, dude, this guy is fucking brain dead. It's still early days. There's a lot more to come. There's so much happening that's so positive. Yeah, but I've sold all my fucking coins. Do you believe this guy? First, he sells. Then, and thank you for the article, James Greaves. This is definitely properly listed under opinion. He abandons crypto. And then he says, I'm going to be the big teacher to tell you how to do crypto. Here's the thing, kids. There's no mommy and daddy in this room. Even mommy and daddy from old don't have a proper grip on this thing. And following in this guy's footsteps will only get you duped and stuck in the frameworks that I've been talking about on this show. So yeah, don't worry about what other people are doing. Do your shit. If your shit's illegal, you will get busted. If you're not illegal, if you're actually fulfilling and you're not being a fraudulent asshole, everything will be fine. But this guy, I predict, number 1, his project will get wrecked, and he will get wrecked. Because I haven't known any successful project in cryptocurrency that had to go to one of these monkeys and ask them how to do their shit. They just did their shit. And if their shit is still alive, it means that enough people believed in it to keep it going. And it didn't require any advisors. It didn't require this fucking monkey. So there you go. You don't really need that shit. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. And, yeah, here we go. Sepultura, Arise, here on Coin Metal. Sorry about that, got a little distracted there. Earlier in the week I had finished the lyric of that song in a tweet to Megadeth, Wake Up Dead. And that was off of Peace Sells. If you are familiar with that album, you know it is one of the best fucking albums ever made. So yeah, check it out. Anyway, so yeah, we are going to close it out with that. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. But yeah, they're no more capable of determining how you spend your coins on chain than they were in 2009. Where you allow them to change that is if you start transacting not directly on the blockchain with the network, but through third-party intermediaries, and they abound out there. They're more than happy to steal your fucking money out from under you, along with your ass. And so, yeah, it is with that I'd like to close this out. We will be back on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening. You'll be able to find me until Friday. You'll be able to find me on Twitter, on Facebook, and also in the Telegram and Discord chat rooms for Verge Currency. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I don't know. It's kind of tough. We got about 4 minutes left. Yeah, that's good enough. Let's go for it. Let's go. Here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening.